Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Igor and let him take it from here.
Yep. Thank you and welcome. So my name is Igor, and today I would like to speak about RPA stuff. So RPA is robotic process automation. Probably some of you already tried to automate something. Has anyone tried to automate any process in their organization? Yep. Okay, cool. That's good. Nice to know. Do you use some platform for automation? Okay. The question that I would like to ask you is that, do you trust robots in general? Can you trust your life to a robot?
No.
No? Yeah, it's a good question.
I do every day.
How?
I do every day.
Every day.
In a car.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, you do. Yeah. For example, you got this office by a car, and so robot simply changed the gears in the transmission because probably you use automatic transmission car. So every day you trust robot your life, whether we want it or not, but we already do it in our habitual life. And also, probably 2 years ago, when I traveled to Oslo, I simply went to a tube, and then I checked my watch, and so the train started moving exactly on the second. I mean that I just checked my watch and see, okay, it is moving. Then when it stopped moving exactly on the second. And so then I checked the information, and that train was driverless train in Oslo. It was 2 years ago. And as of right now, if we speak about automation in general, Gartner says that almost 25% of all jobs can be automated. So what it means that all repetitive tasks, some mundane, boring work can be automated. And also, if we speak about numbers, so there is a projection that by 2030, more than 375 million jobs potentially could be automated. And also, if we speak about automation in general, we need to speak about some kind of scaling. So I mean that if we would like to automate something, we need to understand how to scale something. And if we speak about driverless train, so for example, in London, which is much bigger than Oslo, much bigger. So in a year, it will be driverless train. So they tried this technology in Oslo, and right now they can use this technology in London. And also, hope I haven't scared you enough, but there are tons of work for people, definitely. Because RPA is something that should help us with automation of some repetitive work. But if we speak about people, if we speak about humans, we need to think that in the future, all people should rather concentrate on some more productive, on some more creative work, and all other work should be done by some robots, it should be done by some automation.
Isn't it weird to see people working like machines? Repetitive movements, routine tasks, identical days. Some people really enjoy this, but they are one in a million. Now it's possible to liberate humans and offer them something more engaging. RPA bots can complete 1 million tasks in just 1 second and let people concentrate on more creative work. RPA brings freedom from boring tasks.
Hope this short video gave you some better understanding what is boring work. Yeah, I know that you know what is it. And so if we speak about RPA in general, I would say that RPA is something about happiness. Why? Because RPA helps people to automate something. It liberates people from some work. And also RPA provides people with some accurate tool. It means that we simply can eliminate human factor. Right now we live in a world where we are overwhelmed with a lot of tasks. So we are always in multitasking all the time. And human factor is something that we need to think about all the time. And RPA can help us a lot with this stuff. Also, sometimes RPA can make you cry. That is the truth. Yeah. And why? I can give you some example. This is audit case. And it happened probably 2.5 years ago. We were here in Nashville with some very big, well-known company. I'm not able to tell you the name of this company. And so it was some audit case. And then we worked with some analysts. We had a demo, so we completed some development of one bot. And then he simply sent us a letter. He sent a letter to a bot, and then bot responded to that letter. And so total execution of a bot was 10 seconds, and it took 20 seconds for this person to get a response. And so what he did, he simply sent some data, some raw data. It was in balance sheet and income statement. And so it was processed in general in 10 seconds. And so every day this person makes this calculation, and so he does it in 40 minutes. And so they have like a team of, they had a team of 3 people. And then, he said, no, it can't be. It can be simply because he couldn't believe in it. And so he just sent one file and then again and again and again and again. And so maybe after the 10th file, he said, okay, I just processed all my day work in a number of minutes. And then he started crying, saying, like, I had wasted so much time of my life, last 2 years. I spent every day calculating all those numbers, checking if they're correct or not. And so he were not able to share the job with some offshore resource simply because this data was very sensitive. And that's why they had to process everything here in the USA. And so, yeah, he started crying. So be careful. It can make you cry. And also, if you refer to a number of resources, probably you know the market leaders. This is UiPath, this is Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and also all other companies. They speak about RPA, giving you some information about it. So to be on the same page, we simply decided to find the most accurate phrase that can explain what RPA is. So let me read it carefully. The use of technology to automate business processes to sequentially transition from one task to the next with minimal human intervention. What does it mean? It means that even if you have a process which requires some human intervention, it doesn't mean that it can be automated. It means that it can be automated partially. To give you an example, maybe 2 years ago we automated some process. In that process 120 people were involved, and we automated 90 of them. So still 30 people need to work, but in general 90 people shouldn't. They don't have to work after the automation. And if we speak about RPA, definitely if you start Googling it, you will find such explanation like a bot. So what bot means? So bot is some software which consists of a number of scripts. And so if we speak about automation of a process, we need to develop a couple of bots that can interact with each other just to complete some process. And so when we say a bot, we mean that we are going to automate simple, routine, repetitive tasks. And so those tasks definitely can be performed much quicker as if you ask a human to do it, and they can perform much quicker and with higher accuracy. And also to purify, finally, what RPA is and what it can do, and also to understand what it can't do, I need to share with you some applications that can be automated using RPA. So definitely the first one is web browser. All websites that you interact with, they can be automated on different levels. Also SAP, it doesn't matter whether it is desktop version or web version, it can be automated. Outlook, Excel, Word, PDF. Yes, we can scrub the data from PDF and then process it. Also, databases, it doesn't matter whether it is SQL or NoSQL databases, RPA can interact with those databases, pull some data up, and also then send some and save some data back. Also, RPA can work with some APIs, and also it will work with some shared folders. And also, if we speak about RPA, we need to say that RPA is not something about physical machines. Because, for example, if we start thinking about robots, we simply imagine some kind of big machine with eyes, with some hands. Like, personally, I like Bender. Have you ever seen Futurama? Yeah, this is my hero. I'm just kidding. So RPA is not something about physically existing machine. This is something about software that can be executed in the cloud. It can be executed on premise VM. It doesn't matter where, but it will be operated by operational system. And also, if we speak about RPA, definitely this is not something like Alexa. No, it's not something about artificial intelligence or voice recognition. And finally, let's speak about RPA subsegment in entire market, and let's speak about some projections and prospects of this technology. So right now you see some charts which carefully have been taken from Gartner. So this information is quite new and recent. So the right chart was taken from Gartner in July 2019. And so according to the chart, so this is hype circle for artificial intelligence. So what does it mean? It means that Gartner says that some technology can be on the peak of a hype. And then people start using this technology, and then this technology can get to so-called plateau of productivity. So RPA is quite close to plateau of productivity. Right now, Gartner says that RPA is in trough of disillusionment. And so in 2 years, and even less than in 2 years, it should be on a plateau of productivity. To give you some background to compare RPA with some other stuff, speaking about artificial intelligence, I need to tell you something about driverless cars. Yeah, I like this idea. And so Gartner says 10 years. 10 more years for driverless cars to be used by a lot of people. If we speak about machine learning, which is quite well known right now, and a lot of people simply talk a lot about machine learning, which is cool stuff. Gartner says up to 5 years for machine learning to be used by a number of different companies and to be very productive and effective. For RPA, only 2 years. And also Gartner says that RPA is the fastest growing software subsegment with year-over-year growth around 63% in 2018. And also, if we speak about innovations, we always need to refer to Rogers, so to Rogers curve, and to understand where are we right now, in which group are we right now. So speaking about RPA, so the bad news is that we are not innovators anymore. So now it is not something about the beginning of innovation. And the good news is that we are not laggards. Still, we are not laggards. Right now, RPA is transitioning from early adopters to early majority. It means, and so what it means? It means that a lot of companies right now, and probably your competitors, will start adopting RPA very soon because the majority of the market will start using RPA. Right now, RPA is in early adopters, according to Rogers curve and according to some projections. And here I'd like to talk about business and why business loves RPA so much. Because RPA can reduce resources, because RPA can execute some tasks quicker, And also because RPA can work with some legacy systems. I believe this is a very painful topic for you to work with some legacy system. I can give you some example. For example, you have some big system which architecture is monolithic, and you would like to switch from monolithic architecture to microservices architecture, which quite a difficult movement, but it is doable with the time. And so speaking about RPA, for RPA it doesn't matter if you have monolithic or if you have microservice architecture, because RPA can work with some legacy systems. RPA uses a number of different approaches to approach the system from different levels, from database level, API level, some responses, and also from HTTP responses, and also from UI. And also, if we speak about RPA, RPA works with a number of industries, and it works with a number of different companies, which are banks, insurance companies, telecom companies, healthcare companies, utility companies. And here I can share with you some information that has been carefully collected by one of our biggest partners. So they simply wanted to collect all the information and collect feedback of some departments, speaking about the value of RPA and speaking about the benefits that they got after implementation of RPA. So they collected those benefits. They had collected those benefits in the past 3 years. So what they say that it is simple and inexpensive. They say it is robotic, so in the sense of taking over repetitive human tasks. Compliant and consistent. Also is that RPA can be operated 24/7. And also some other very valuable points they mentioned. Then, here finally, I will start talking about some personal experience and how we started working with RPA. So we started around 3 years ago, and so we had the challenge that we needed to build center of excellence, and so we had only 3 enthusiasts. And so what was the biggest challenge? 3 years ago, if you go in the market and you would like to hire some person who knows RPA, it was impossible, because 0 people knew about RPA. What it means that we needed to learn something by ourselves and be pioneers in this industry, in this subsegment. That was quite challenging. And we decided, what can we do? You know, when we started and our investors just said, okay, we would like to invest some money in this center of excellence that will build some RPA bots. So they kept asking me one question. Do you know who is the best candidate that we are going to hire? Which skill set should have that person? And honestly, that was a big question to me. I didn't know. I didn't know at the time completely who it should be. And then we simply started hiring people, and competition was fierce. I mean that a lot of people applied for this position and they wanted to be a pioneer and wanted to try this technology. And so it took for us some time to hire maybe a dozen of people to start 3 years ago, to start learning the RPA. And so we hired one inserter. So 29 people got the refusal, and only one was accepted, and so only one joined our team. And so it meant that one person, and so we hired maybe 10 or maybe 15 people, such people. Those guys, they needed to pass the probation period, 3 months. And only 60% of them finally got to the final stage. And final stage was, okay, we need to start working on some RPA bot. So 1 in 50 for us. it was very difficult. Right now it's much simpler for you because you can find a lot of RPA guys in the market and they can help you. So you shouldn't be a pioneer, you simply should find an appropriate person. For us it was quite a big challenge because we didn't know who to hire and we didn't know how to teach this person. Right now we have more than 75 people in our team, and so we implemented more than 150 bots. Okay, right now I will tell you something that we tried to understand. So we wanted to understand what is similar for all those people, which skill set is the same, how do they think. And then after a while we figured out that automation is a mindset. I mean that if you want to automate something, if you know that this stuff can be automated and this stuff should be done manually, then when you get some good level in automation in RPA, you simply can switch to QA automation and start automating QA effort. Then you can start automation design acceptance. What it means that some pixel perfect design can be accepted by some software. Also, we can automate security right now. And also we can automate release management and release engineering. It means that, what it means to automate release management, it means that we can accelerate the deployment process. So if it takes 9 minutes to deploy something, right now we can do it in 3 minutes. So this is the mindset that people have. They have the skill to automate something. And also we can automate infrastructure, by the way. And here I would like to share with you some main principles that we determined for ourselves. So here are 7 main principles. It doesn't mean that we determine only 7 principles. No, it means that I would like to share with you only those 7 principles today that are very valuable if you would like to start automating something. So the first principle that we determined is automate what is worth automation. Right now I will simply read all those principles, and then when I switch to the next slide, I will start speaking on a more specific level, and I will cover all those principles one by one. Then set priorities. Be atomic. Don't strictly mimic humans. Don't copy paste. Think service solutions and never stop optimizing. Those 7 principles will help you to automate almost any process. And so right now we'll start talking about all those principles. Yeah. So the first one is that RPA is not a magic wand. It means that according to Gartner, almost a half of projects and a half of automations they fail. And here are reasons of those failures. Weak analysis. Design best practices are not followed. Not relevant infrastructure. Here is, we will start talking about the candidate. So what is the best candidate? What is the best process that can be considered as some process that can be automated? And also, if we speak about these parameters that I will share with you, those parameters give you only one answer, whether this is a candidate or not. If all those parameters can be defined, it doesn't mean that this is a perfect candidate, but it means that this process is a candidate, is a potential automation. So what are those parameters? So is the process well defined and structured? It means that if you can simply write down the entire flow and determine the entire flow, and if the flow is understandable for everyone, and also if there is a structure in this process. Also, I would like to say that the second parameter is that is the process repetitive. It means that if you can repeat this process a number of times, and it should be repeated at least a couple of times a day. Also, the next one parameter, what should trigger the process? I mean, it could be triggered automatically by a schedule, or it can be triggered by some event. It can be triggered by person, it can be triggered by some file, by a lot of different movements, events. And also the fourth one, what are inputs and outputs? So when I speak about inputs and outputs in the process, so process is something about getting from spot A to spot B. And in spot A, you need to have inputs, in spot B, you need to have outputs. So if you can determine all those four parameters for a process, it means that this process is a candidate. And then you can say, okay, if a part of a process is structured and well-defined, and another part is not well-structured and not well-defined, okay, still, it can be automated. In the beginning of presentation, I told you that we automated some process, 120 people were involved, and 90 of them were automated, and 30 of them were not automated, because they needed to have some human intervention in this process. So it's very simple to define the candidate. It's not that simple to achieve some great result. And also here I would like to speak about ROI. Yeah, definitely, because when we think about automation, we always need to think about money and about return of investment. And so here I need to tell you that if you would like to automate something, don't automate everything. Simply, you need to concentrate from the very beginning on the simplest process and then automate this process. You need to automate something that can be automated, which is simple to automate. And when you get some experience, you will evolve and understand how to automate all those processes in your company. Because if we speak about automations and companies, all companies have their policies and all companies have their restrictions. And those restrictions can be dictated by some security issues, by some infrastructure issues, and etc. So from the very beginning, you need to start automating some simple processes, get some first experience, then automate another simple process, and etc. If you would like to automate some big process, so set up your priorities and automate some simple part of this process and also measure our ROI. Because sometimes you shouldn't automate the entire process. You can automate a part of this process and get very good value for ROI. So this is something about priorities. And also here I would like to say that automation doesn't start with automation itself. What it means that if you really would like to automate, think about infrastructure. Because it's very difficult to build some wall on the grass. You need to have some foundation. You need to understand how are you going to deploy all those bots. You need to determine which platform would you like to use. Or if you don't like platform, okay, you need to determine which deployment system you would like to use. Also, you need to understand, are you going to use on-premise solution or are you going to use some cloud-based solution, etc., etc., etc. All those parameters should be determined before coding. Because if you code something and then you start thinking about foundation, that would be a wall on the grass, which is very complicated to build and then very complicated to support. And also, if we speak about walls, as I say, and as you can see here, wall which contains of some small bricks is much more reliable and much more maintainable than one monolithic wall. And here I will explain why. So almost all our partners with which we work and have worked, they made the same mistake all the time. All the time when we started helping them, we saw one big mistake. They wanted to automate one process by building one big bot. This is a very bad decision. It's a terrible decision, I must say. Why? Because, for example, you have a very big process, you build some one bot, and you have a number of functions inside of this bot. And then you need to make some changes in function 3. And so you will get a big impact, because you would need to retest the entire bot. And also all other functions will be impacted. And also your development time will be extended. And it's not that simple to support, you know. And also, if we speak about deployment, the deployment time will be much longer. And that's why we say that it should be some distributed architecture. What it means that we need to use some deployment platform, and we need to build framework of bots, the solutions, the holistic solutions that will consist of a number of bots that will interact with each other. It means that all those bots can send and exchange parameters with each other. And for example, if you need to make any change in some bot, it means that you simply go to the bot, you make some change, and all other bots are not impacted. You shouldn't retest the entire solution. Definitely you can run some dry tests, but it doesn't mean that you need to retest entire solution. It doesn't mean that, that impact will be much lower, and so you will have much lower risks. And then when you onboard some additional developers, they won't face this issue that it's difficult to work with this bot simply because they don't understand the logic, because this one is too big. Yeah, so don't build monolithic walls. And here I would like to speak about healthcare case. Because sometimes RPA can be done without RPA. What it means that, for example, when you think about RPA, usually you go to Gartner, and so Gartner says, okay, there are 3 market leaders, UiPath, Blue Prism, and Automation Anywhere. But sometimes you don't need them. If you have a good experience in RPA, you can build everything without using those platforms. Definitely they have done a great job, but they would like you to pay some money for this great job, and you would need to pay for some license, and this is quite expensive, I must say. And so speaking about this case for healthcare company, so what challenge we had? So we needed to process around 130,000 medical care invoices. And at that time, they had a team of 8 or 10 people, I don't remember. And so those guys processed all those invoices in 3 weeks. And then we built a solution, and we had done it only in 2 hours. Can you imagine this difference, like 3 weeks versus 3 hours? And so this is a good advantage. For example, if you have competitors in the market, and your competitors still do it manually and you do it automatically, it takes 2 hours for you, it takes 3 weeks for them. It's very painful when you make your clients wait. And then after a while, they said that they would like to scale the solution a lot. And they would like to process 2 million items. Do you know how painful, probably you know how painful it is to scale team of people? It's difficult. You need to onboard them, you need to find some working places, to give them equipment, to teach them, etc., to pay taxes. And then they said, okay, we would like to scale solution. And we say, okay, we can do this. And we a little bit rebuild the bot. We a little bit enhance the bot, and after the second iteration, it could do it in 35 minutes. And also it was scalable solution, based, which was deployed in cloud. And so in the case if they would like to scale it more, so they can do it easily, simply by adding some instances in AWS. And also, I would like to say that if you go to different companies who are vendors, who are companies who develop RPA platforms, they would say that RPA is something very simple. You just can try our platform, and you can just record the process, and then it will work. It's not that simple, and also there is a huge mistake, because when we started working on RPA, we assumed, oh, it looks like a piece of cake, yeah? We can simply mimic all human activities and say, okay, we just can repeat all those actions that user does with website. No, it is not efficient, because such solutions are very, the performance of such solution is not good. Also, such solutions are not stable. And by the way, to develop such solution, it will take much longer for you. Yeah. And also, that's why we figured out that when you need to automate something, don't strictly repeat all activities that user does. No way, no. You can do it with more optimized way. So remember I told you that that process is something about getting from spot A to spot B, that we need from inputs get outputs. So it can be very sophisticated process with a number of tasks. I don't know, 200 tasks that should be performed. But still, the key point is all those processes are the same, inputs and outputs, spot A and spot B. And if you would like to develop something, think about getting from spot A to spot B. It can be using some API, it can be using some DB or something like this, but don't mimic human activities. And also, to give you some example, in the beginning of this conversation, I'll start talking about automatic transmission and manual transmission. Can you imagine if the robot changes the transmission like you did it, or like we did it when we operated manual cars, manual transmission cars? No way, no. Because robot can does it on the level of transmission inside of the box. And also, I told you that mimicking is bad, but sometimes you can start with mimicking because you don't know any other approaches. And here is the case. It was more than 2 years ago, and so we need to automate some tax case. At that time, 150 people were involved in this process, and this process was seasonal. So they executed this process twice a year. It took 5 weeks for them to process all those filings. 150 people have done this. Then they asked us to automate this, and we automated all that process in 6 months. And so for our bot, it took only 4 minutes to populate the form. And previously, it took 20 minutes for a person to populate this form. So it's a big win, so 5 times, we can say. And also, I need to mention that if we speak about bots, they are available 24/7. So still, you shouldn't ask people to work that much. And also, bots are much stable than people because people make mistakes, unfortunately. And then after a while, they told us they would like to scale. And we said, okay, we can do this. And so it took for us 2 months to build this solution from scratch. Just 2 months, 6 months versus 2 months. And so we achieved some good results. I mean, 20 seconds versus 20 minutes. 60 times faster, more reliable, much better, ready for cloud, and etc. So you can start with mimicking. And so if we speak about RPA and automation and QA automation, you have to accept that you need to evolve. And so what it means that if you automated something, then it doesn't mean that this approach you need to reuse all the time. And here I would like to speak about the bot like a solution and about some quality of the bot, because we need to measure the quality and we need to understand if this bot is reliable, good, and can help us. So here I would like to show you some video. This is Boston Dynamics robot. And right now tester interferes with the robot and doesn't allow this robot to open the door. And so the robot should deal with all those obstacles to open the door and proceed. This is exactly what we think when we develop some RPA solutions. This video we show to our newcomers to understand what quality is and what error handling is. So this bot, this robot deals with all those obstacles, and finally open the door and simply is doing what it needed to do. And exactly the same approach we use when we build our solutions. I mean that we need to think about reliability. We need to think about security. We need to think about error handling, about performance, speed. Because sometimes internet connection can be lost. Sometimes your VM can be reset during the run, and etc., etc. And those bots, they are not like a number of scripts that should be executed. No way. If you treat your bots like a number of scripts that should be executed, you're doomed to fail, unfortunately. They are complicated software services, almost like microservice that should be tolerant to all those obstacles. And here, I would like to speak about experience and about copy-pasting. For example, you automated some bot and you say, okay, so this bot is successful, we already automated it, and right now we have some similar bot that can be automated. Should we simply reuse the solution that had been already automated and that is successful? Answer yes and no. In this case, we show that 3 different peoples, they just suggest 3 different solutions. And all of them are right, but which decision is the best? So what I mean that this is something, so RPA is something about using a number of approaches. If one approach is reliable and you already used this approach for some bot, it doesn't mean that this approach is the best for another process, even if this process seems to be absolutely similar. No. Unfortunately, no. Because RPA is a number of different approaches that you need to apply, that you need to use. Sometimes you need to use APIs, sometimes you need to use databases, sometimes you need to mimic human activities. So definitely when we develop something, we don't think about copy-pasting. No. Also here I would like to emphasize those how-tos that I shared in the beginning just to help you catch them. So define what is to be automated, set up your priorities, use distributed architecture, find the most effective algorithms, treat each case as unique, don't compromise on quality, and the last one, optimize. You need to optimize your solutions. You need to think how they can perform much better. And here I would like to speak about some business case. This is a talent case. And also this is something about inspiration that we can share with people. So what we had in the very beginning and what kind of challenge we needed to face. So at the beginning, we work with some big client, with very big department, with talent department. And so sometimes you need to hire up to 150 people weekly and up to 100 people daily. And what they do, like when you are such a big company and you have so many new hires a week, it's very difficult to help them to keep up, and it's very difficult to make them stay with your company, to understand the philosophy of your company, simply because you hire a lot of people. And at that time, and right now still they have the same approach, they use newcomers body approach. It means that for those newcomers that join the company, they match this newcomer with somebody. This is the person who works, this is the employee of the company, and this person should be matched by a number of parameters. It should be, this person should be from the same location. It should be peer of this newcomer. It should have similar skills, probably interests, and etc., etc. And so it's very difficult to match such people. When you have a big company, you have some talent, people, some recruitment staff, and you need to match those people. And sometimes you simply match people and they have different skill set. Or sometimes, even worse, they can be in different locations, so they would never meet each other. And also when they match those people, they send letters asking to complete some survey about the process and helping understand whether it was successful or not. They extend a lot, and they need a robust solution for that. They need it. And so we implemented some bot that could perform all those activities just in 8 minutes. So for example, they matched all those people and sent letters maybe in 4 or 5 days. And so 6 people were involved, a lot of time. And then they were so inspired that they started sending me letters saying the bot successfully finished the process, thank you. It was in April 2019. And I still keep getting those letters. Right now we're joking, like why not automate those letters? Simply, yeah, they are so inspired that previously they faced so many issues, like it was a nightmare to match those people simply because a lot of them, they felt like, this is not a good match. Because this person is not my peer. How can I help this person, etc. So I would say that RPA can help people stay humans. This is all from my side. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them right now. Sure.
So obviously you have to do a lot of QA and quality control on the front end, but so what's the process of doing QA and quality control, throughout as it's live, the bot's going, doing the tasks, dealing with really important things, that you want to check, and balance, make sure everything is going. So
it's a good question. We have some monitoring tools that can monitor all jobs that were executed. And in the case of failure, administrator gets some letter that this is a failure. Because right now we have more than 150 frameworks. Inside of those frameworks consist of like 5, 10 bots, sometimes 3 bots. And it means that we have almost thousands of bots which are running all the time. And yes, we have some monitoring tool just to check if the run was successful or not. If we see that it was not successful, we need to go and check this specific VM in this specific infrastructural segment. And also when we deliver something, and when we deliver some bot to production VM and we say this is a production ready VM, we need to run some dry tests. So we need to run this bot to check if it works correctly or not without creating any objects inside of it, any entities. But definitely without monitoring tool, it would be a nightmare to do this.
So on the front end of the engagement, does your team have like a business analyst, or are they a specialized type analysis set that actually does the process mapping and the requirements gathering prior to even looking at any solutions or engineering? Like, is this something that could be automated from lab?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends on the format of the contracts that we have with our customers. For example, with some of our customers, when we provide consultant, yes, we have a consultant who flies and who visits our customers and simply can help our customers understand whether this candidate is good or not. And so we use some techniques to collect all the data. I mean that we have some intake form which contains around 300 fields which we need to populate. We don't ask our customers to populate those fields. We do it by ourselves. And when we populate those fields for one process, then we can compare this intake form results with other intake form results, another. Then we review customers' priorities and say, okay, this candidate is the best for you because you will get very high ROI for this work. It can be, in a year, it can be 2 years to return your money. So this technique we use for the customers which we consult. For customers which we provide with some delivery, On their side, they have SME, subject matter expert, and we interact with this person simply asking, okay, so do you have as-is process? And so they need to structure the process, they need to write down the process, and for that as-is process, we need to write down to be document. And this to be document is a holistic specification that we use to develop. If we work like consulting, if we act like consulting company, for those people we say, okay, we can document as-is process, then we will document to be process, and then we will provide the results of process.
So how is this different than just like microservices in general from the standpoint of if you have a well-defined input and you have a well-defined output? How do you differentiate what is RPA versus just a microservice?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if we speak about microservice, usually microservice it's some standalone application that is operated by some deployment platform, and then the standalone application or software interacts with other microservices. It could be service bus solution, or it could be just sending some parameters between those microservices. And if we speak about microservices, we also need to say that for this application has some front-end level. So microservice, and front-end. And those microservices simply provide front-end with some results. And these microservices, usually they have some APIs. If we speak about bots, yes, you're right, they're similar. They're quite similar. It depends which technology we use. If we use, for example, UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, so we use the platform which deploys all that stuff. It will be orchestrator for UiPath, it will be Blue Prism server for Blue Prism. And those microservices, they will be run on some VM which is operated by Windows, unfortunately. Because usually when we speak about microservices, they are operated by Unix operational system, and so they usually are deployed into the cloud. But if we speak that we can develop some RPA bot without RPA platform, and then we can say, okay, so we can use some deployment platform that can deploy this specific bot, and this specific bot will be operated, for example, in AW instance in some Fargate. So yes, it will be almost like microservice. It will be close to microservice, but for example, for this specific bot, for this specific software, we need to somehow help this bot to interact with the person. So it could be some, for example, website which interacts with this bot, or this bot can just check some data from Outlook, or can just check some data from shared folder, or etc. So in general, if you say that it is similar to microservice, yes. If you don't use RPA platform, it will be almost like microservice. If you use RPA platform, it will be different because it will be fully operated by this server, by this deployment system. So in general, if we speak about RPA, they didn't invent something absolutely new. No, they simply use tools appropriately. They do it in the most appropriate way. They know how to handle errors in the case if, so in these deployment systems, they have monitoring, they have deployment, and also they store all those parameters. And like this deployment tool almost looks like ADO, Azure, or like TeamCity or some other deployment tools. So in general, yeah, you would need to deploy and you would need to interact with the service.
So it sounds like you've hired about 75 people?
Yeah.
What skill set or combination of skill sets do you find is best if I'm looking to hire my own RPA developers?
It's a very good question. So they should know how to code. So they need to know at least one basic language. When I say one basic language, it should be .NET. It should be C#, C++, or it could be Java, or it could be Python. And also they need to know how to, so it could be very general level, but still they need to know how to code, and they need to know what is object-oriented coding. Also, they would need to know how to code with JavaScript because they will work with front end. And also, probably they would need to know maybe some PowerShell on very general level. Also, they need to know databases just a bit. So I would say this is like a full stack developer, but on elementary level. Unfortunately, to know a lot. But RPA doesn't require them to know all that stuff on a very high level. You should have this very broad vision of IT without having some like crucial skills in any particular domain, any particular language. But it could be very general. I mean that, for example, some graduate can join your team in the case if this person studied very good in university.
I'm sure as you've grown, and you're seeing businesses with the same types of problems, repetition. I'm curious, from your perspective now that you've had a lot more experience in the realm of RPA, what are the problems that you're seeing businesses needing to solve first? And or the problems that you're seeing businesses get the highest ROI on when they tackle them?
Okay. So first of all, yes, they need to start thinking about infrastructure and simply understand if they can automate something with currently existing infrastructure. Because one of our clients wanted us to automate, and then, unfortunately, our client figured out that their infrastructure doesn't allow us to have some VMs and then deploy something. So they needed to buy some platform or enhance infrastructure out. The second thing is that we need to gather all those candidates, have a list of candidates, set up list of priorities, and then understand if they are good or not. Because sometimes it can be that processes are not well defined, unfortunately, and they are not repetitive. And also sometimes it also can be that one of SME, one of very, let's say, big bosses wants us to automate something which is very difficult to automate. And so we need to help those people understand that we need to automate something that should have the highest ROI. And to measure that ROI, you need to have these skills how to understand, okay, if I automate this, if it worth it or not. And also one big mistake is that when customer would like to automate some process, they would like to automate the whole process without breaking this process into some pieces and say, this is a very good piece. Why not automate this piece of logic? Because this is a process inside of process. Let's do it. And also, sometimes also it could be a big mistake as well. Some of our customers would like to automate something very sophisticated, something that needs some human judgment and etc. It shouldn't be automated so far. I mean that if this is human judgment, this human judgment should be done by people. And the part which is repetitive and simple, it should be automated. And sometimes our customers say, you know, I want to get full package, full house, automate the entire process. And you say, you know, to automate this human judgment, we would need to implement some neural network, which will be very expensive for you because we would need to make the decision, and this decision should be reliable, and you need to understand that this is a correct decision. And then we say, no, let's step out from it and automate this piece of logic.
It's a really, so for a bank, so think of CTO, and they say, okay, I would like to automate and would like to implement RPA. But the bigger question is, when I would like to go to board and ask for more money, how do I estimate? So typical way where banks work, okay, we first get consultant who will identify, right? Or like what are the processes out of say 75 processes I will use, 60 processes can be automated, right?
Yes.
But actually it fails. So from CTO perspective, what I mean, or like for any technology person's leader's perspective, what are your way when you talk to your customer? What is the right way when they decide what all need to be automated, and how to predict or like do costing around it? So budgeting part. So how do you help with that?
Okay, sure. So yeah, it's a complicated question. Yeah, I agree that sometimes it's very difficult to justify the automation because you need to understand when actually you get your money back, in a month, in 2 months, in a couple of years, and etc. Because it's very difficult to measure the expenses you have right now. For example, if we speak about people that we need to automate, so we need to measure some hiring expenses, we need to measure some expenses for working place, we need to measure some expenses for taxes, for equipment, etc. So a lot of expenses. And so usually we don't ask our clients to measure all that stuff to justify the automation because it would be difficult, because each single company has its own expenses, and sometimes it's very difficult to measure because sometimes you can hire a person and the biggest challenge for this person would be to learn something, because this process requires some profound knowledge. So usually we don't ask them to measure all those expenses that they have, but rather we ask them a couple of questions. We ask them how many times this process will be executed. And also we measure the number of hours which current team spent to for this process to achieve some results. And when we see that the number of hours is thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, and then we say, okay, it will take for us to automate this bot 700 hours. It's very simple to understand that, okay, so if we would like to automate, I don't know, 1 million hours, and we would need to spend, I don't know, 1,000 hours to automate, in such case we can say, okay, it is worth it. Because if we would like to assemble all those expenses, it would be difficult to really understand. Because sometimes, for example, for the case when we spoke about healthcare, they needed to get this, let's say, advantage in the market that they can process all those invoices in 2 hours. And all their competitors just could do it in 3 weeks. And so how to measure it? It's difficult to see because this is a reputation. So that's why we decided that we need to use a simpler approach. Measure all those hours that they spend right now. Also ask them if they would like to scale, because sometimes the businesses with which we work, they would like to scale this process. It could be, for example, once it was scaled from 100,000 hours to 2 million hours. It's enormously huge process which requires 2 million hours to be spent by people annually. It's a lot. And then we say, okay, it will take us to automate this a couple of thousands. And so it's very simple to understand. Okay, this is a very good candidate. Let's start understanding if we can build infrastructure or not. Then we say, okay, how much would we need to spend for infrastructure? Because sometimes it would be a lot of money, because we would need to have some standalone server, standalone applications, and then we measure all those expenses for infrastructure and say, okay, it looks like that we won't spend a lot. Okay, right now it looks like this is a good candidate for us.
All right, appreciate it.